Welcome to EcoFun's video on the national differences in political, economic, and legal systems. This video will focus on how the political, economic, and legal systems of countries differ from one another. There are several terminologies to note as follows. The term political economy means that the political, economic, and legal systems of a country are interdependent and influence each other. Political systems refers to the system of government in a nation. Political systems can be assessed according to two dimensions. The first is the degree to which they emphasize collectivism as opposed to individualism. The second is the degree to which they are democratic or totalitarian. Collectivism means the needs of society as a whole are generally viewed as being more important than individual freedoms. It refers to the political system that stresses the primacy of collective goals over individual goals. Socialism is a political, social, and economic philosophy encompassing a range of economic and social systems categorized by social ownership of the means of production and democratic control, such as workers' self-management or enterprises. The socialist ideology was split into two broad views: communists versus social democrats. The communists believed that socialism could be achieved only through violent revolution and totalitarian dictatorship, whereas the social democrats committed themselves to achieving socialism by democratic means, turning their backs on violent revolution and dictatorship. Both versions of socialism waxed and waned during the 20th century. Privatization is the sale of state-owned enterprises to private investors. Individualism means an individual should have freedom in his or her economic and political pursuits, and the interests of the individual should take precedence over the interests of the state. The welfare of society is best served by letting people pursue their own economic self-interest. Democracy and totalitarianism both are at different ends of a political dimension. Democracy refers to a political system in which government is by the people, exercised either directly or through elected representatives. Totalitarianism is a form of government in which one person or political party exercises absolute control over all spheres of human life and prohibits opposing political parties. Democracy and individualism go hand in hand, as do the communist version of collectivism and totalitarianism, with exceptions. Within democracy, we can see the form of representative democracy, political systems in which citizens periodically elect individuals to represent them in the government, for example, the US, while communist totalitarianism is a version of collectivism advocating that socialism can be achieved only through a totalitarian dictatorship. Theocratic totalitarianism, political power is monopolized by a party, group, or individual that governs according to religious principles, for example, Saudi Arabia and Iran. These states limits freedom of political and religious expression with laws based on the Islamic principles. Tribal totalitarianism, a political system in which a party, group, or individual that represents the interest of a particular tribe monopolizes political power. Tribal totalitarianism has arisen from time to time in African countries such as Zimbabwe, Tanzania, Uganda, and Kenya. In Kenya, there are more than 40 tribes. Politicians from the Kikuyu tribe long dominated the political system. Right-wing totalitarianism, a political system in which a political power is monopolized by a party, group, or individual that generally permits individual economic freedom but restricts individual political freedom, including free speech, often on the ground that would lead to the rise of communism. For example, Ferdinand Marcos' government in the Philippines. Pseudo-democracies lie between pure democracies and complete totalitarianism systems. Authoritarian elements have captured some or much of the machinery of state and use this in an attempt to deny basic political and civil liberties. For example, in Vladimir Putin's Russia, elections are still held. People compete through the ballot box for political office. However, Putin has used his position to systematically limit the political and civil liberties of opposition groups. Now let's take a look at some economic system terminologies. Market economy is where all the productive activities are privately owned. Production is determined by supply and demand, and government encourages vigorous, free, and fair competition. Command economy is where the government plans the goods and services, quantity and price, then allocates them for the good of society. All businesses are state-owned. It is historically found in communist economies. However, there would be no incentives for individuals to look for better ways to serve need. Mixed economy is when some sectors are privately owned, some are government-owned. Once common in the developed world, less so now. Government may aid troubled firms. For example, the US helped Citigroup and General Motors. Let's move on to legal systems. Legal systems are the rules or laws that regulate behavior alongside with the processes through which laws are enforced and through which redress for grievances is obtained. It is influenced by the prevailing political system. There are three main types of legal systems in use around the world: common law, civil law, and theocratic law. The common law systems, or simply called the Anglo-American law, this is a legal system developed from customs, also known as customary law or precedent/judgment-made law. It is more flexible than other systems. The civil law system, or simply called the Franco-German legal system, this is a legal system whose foundation is derived from the legal system of France and the laws of some continental European countries. The legal systems of these countries were generally influenced by the Roman law. It is less adversarial than a common law system. Theocratic law is based on religious teachings, the most common being Islamic law. The differences in contract law governs the enforcement of contracts. A contract is a document that specifies the conditions under which an exchange is to occur and details the rights and obligations of parties involved. Some form of contracts regulate many business transactions. Contract law is the body of law that governs contract enforcement. In common law, contracts are very detailed, with all contingencies spelled out. It is more expensive and can be adversarial. In civil law, contracts tend to be much shorter and less specific. United Nations Convention on Contract for the International Sale of Goods, CISG, is a set of rules governing aspects of the making and performance of commercial contracts between sellers and buyers who have their places of business in different nations. Property rights and corruption. Property is a resource that an individual or business owns, such as land, buildings, equipment, capital, mineral rights, businesses, intellectual property. Most countries protect property rights. Private action. In terms of violating property rights, private actions refers to theft, piracy, and blackmail. Public action and corruption. Public officials extort income, resources, or property. For example, levying excessive taxation, requiring expensive licenses or permits from property holders, taking assets into state ownership without compensating the owners, redistributing assets without compensating the prior owners, corruption, and demand bribes. Here we can see the rankings of corruptions by country in 2016. The protection of intellectual property. Patent grants the inventor of a new product or process exclusive rights for a defined period to the manufacture, use, or sale of that invention. Copyrights are the exclusive legal rights of authors, composers, playwrights, artists, and publisher to publish and disperse their work as they see fit. Trademarks are designs and names officially registered by which merchants or manufacturers designate and differentiate their product. Product safety set certain safety standards to which a product must adhere. Product liability, greater if a product does not conform to safety standards, involves holding a firm and its officers responsible when a product causes injury, death, or damage. Criminal and civil laws apply. Finally, the focus on managerial implication. There are two broad implications. Political, economic, and legal environment of a country clearly influence the attractiveness of that country as a market or investment site. A country with a democratic political institution, market-based economic system, and a strong legal system are clearly more attractive to do business in. That is all for this video. Thanks for watching.